Hi guys. So today we're going to be sorting some items based on their weight or on their capacity, but we're going to be using our metric side of our reference chart. So today we're going to be using this information. For volume and capacity, we're going to be deciding, is something measured with liters or will it be measured with milliliters? And then for weight and mass, we'll be deciding, is something going to be measured in kilograms, grams, or milligrams? And for each of those, we'll look at an item that would help us compare, just like we did yesterday. So let's get started. So here I wanted to start with liters and milliliters, and I thought I would give you an idea of what 1 milliliter and 1 liter look like, so we have something we can compare to. So this eyedropper that you may have seen used in the science lab when you've gone and done some science experiments at school, or you may have seen it used in a doctor's office, that holds a few milliliters. So if that was to hold 5 or 6 milliliters, think how small just 1 milliliter is. It's about the size of a teardrop is 1 milliliter. So I want you to keep that in mind when we're talking about how we would measure things today. Your water bottle holds about a liter of water. So that gives us an idea of where we could start. And we want to think about, are we going to be measuring things in liters or milliliters? One way to help us decide how we would measure something is if it's larger than 1 liter, we would be measuring in liters. If it's less than 1 liter, we would be measuring in milliliters. So let's start with this bathtub. Do you think an appropriate measurement for a bathtub is liters or milliliters? And let's think about it like this. If I asked you how much this bathtub would hold, would you want to tell me how many teardrops it would take to fill it up? Because remember, that's about the size of a milliliter. That would be a lot of teardrops. Would it be more appropriate to tell me how many water bottles it would take to fill it up? Yes, we would measure it in liters, not in milliliters. How about this cereal bowl? Do you think you could tell me this in milliliters, or do you think liters? Now think about a cereal bowl for a minute. Do you think it's bigger than your water bottle that's about the size of 1 liter? Or do you think it's smaller than your water bottle that's about the size of 1 liter? It's probably smaller than a liter, so we would categorize this with milliliters. How about a juice box? Would you tell me the measurement of a juice box in liters or milliliters? First, I want you to look right at the bottom of this juice box. It tells you the measurement in milliliters. So sometimes we can just look to see, what does the container already tell me to know how to measure it? And in this case, it's milliliters, because remember, it's smaller than a liter, so we're going to measure it using milliliters. Now, what about this milk container? What do you think about this? Do you think it's bigger than your water bottle? Smaller than your water bottle? Do you think you would tell me how much it's going to take to fill it up in milliliters? Or do you think you would use liters to tell me? I think you would probably tell me that it's pretty close to the same size as your water bottle, so you could tell me its measurement in liters also. What about a swimming pool? I think we could have that same conversation that we had about the bathtub, about the swimming pool. I don't think you would want to try to tell me how many drops it would take to fill up that swimming pool. I think we might lose count. So we would use liters in this case, and that would still be a really big number, wouldn't it? Okay, one more to go. How about this can of soup? What do you think? Do you think it's bigger than your water bottle, or do you think it's smaller than your water bottle? Would you use liters to tell me its capacity, or would you use milliliters to tell me its capacity? You would probably use milliliters, because a can of soup is smaller than a liter. So now that we've talked about capacity today, now we're going to talk about how we would measure something in the metric system using kilograms, grams, and milligrams. So let's see what that would look like. Your math textbook that you use in class is about the weight of 1 kilogram. A paper clip is about the size of 1 gram, and these tiny grains of sand, one tiny grain of sand, is about the weight or the mass of a milligram. So think how tiny one tiny piece of sand is. Now let's think about how we might sort these other things out. So we're going to remember, we're thinking about how the size relates to one of these objects, and then figure out from there, where should I categorize it? So let's talk about a truck. Do you think it weighs more than a grain of sand? It does. Do you think it weighs more than a paperclip? It does. Do you think a truck weighs more than your math textbook? It does. So we would want to measure it in kilograms. It's more than our textbook, but it's not the size of a paperclip for sure. So we would measure this in kilograms. How about this box of cereal? Where do you think it falls? Do you think it weighs more or less than your math textbook? Well, we talked about this when we were looking at it with customary. It depends on how big the box of cereal is, but a box of cereal in general is not very heavy. So, do you think it weighs less than your math textbook? I do too. How about a paperclip? Do you think your box of cereal weighs more or less than a paperclip? Well, more. If it weighed less than a paperclip, you would not be very full after you ate some cereal. So our cereal is going to be measured in grams. How about a mosquito? They're pretty small. They don't weigh very much. Where do you think you would put them? Certainly they don't weigh more than your math textbook. I hope not, that would hurt. Do you think they weigh more or less than a paperclip? Do you think they weigh more than a grain of sand or less than a grain of sand? Well, I think they're probably somewhere between a grain of sand and a paperclip. So we would classify them under milligrams because we would use milligrams to weigh or to find its mass. Now, how about a sandwich that we make at home? Do you think a sandwich weighs as much as your math textbook, or do you think it weighs less than your math textbook? Yeah, I think it probably weighs less than your math textbook. If you made a sandwich as heavy as your math textbook, that would be a pretty big sandwich. I sure hope your sandwich weighs more than a grain of sand. Otherwise, you might be really hungry after you tried to eat it. So I think we would measure our sandwich in grams. How about kids? Where do you think we would measure them? Now, I know you weigh more than a grain of sand, and I'm sure you also weigh more than a paperclip. So where do you think you would be categorized if we were weighing you? What would be the most appropriate way to measure you? You would be measured with kilograms. You weigh more than your math textbook for sure. One more to go. What about this dog? Where do you think it goes? What measurement would be appropriate for a dog? Milligram, gram, or kilogram? I agree. A kilogram would be most appropriate because he definitely weighs more than a paperclip. Good work today, guys. Tomorrow we're going to look at some star word problems and see what kinds of questions we might be asked about the things we've been studying this week. See you tomorrow.